Good afternoon, Toronto. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce Hugh O'Reilly of the Trust Pension Fund to Radioregent broadcast facilities on the Koolbreeze Experience Show. My name is Curtis Anthony. Welcome, Hugh. Thanks for the opportunity to talk to you. We're going to talk about your evolution, your vision, mission of the pension. Koolbreeze is here to chronicle the vibe and magnify your brilliance. We're going to talk about the insights and the analysis of the pension plan. It's an honor to have you here on my show, sir.
It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you. How have you been?
I've been well.
Yeah.
I've been well. Back from vacation.
Right.
Recharged.
Okay.
Ready to go.
Okay.
I'm excited about the work we're doing at OP Trust. I'm excited about what we're doing, how we're going to make a difference.
Right.
And I'm excited about participating in what I think is going to be the next wave in terms of making the world a better place.
That's what I like to hear. Beautiful. You lead one of Canada's largest pension funds and arguably one of the busiest CEOs in the industry. What's a normal day for you like outside of pension?
Well, you mean like a normal?
Yeah.
So I get up every morning at 5 to 5.
Okay.
I've been fighting high blood sugar
Okay.
since I turned 50, which is now 9 years. But now what I do every morning is I have a workout routine. Then I get ready for work.
Yes.
I start every day at work with about a 20-minute walk just to clear my head.
Right.
I'm usually at my desk by 7:30 latest.
Wow.
And then I review emails. I prepare for the meetings that are ahead. I generally my job's a lot of meetings. Internal with people who report to me, internal about the projects we're working on.
Okay.
And then meetings with external people that are interesting to us, that can help us get better, or people we need to meet with who we have to influence to try and make some changes.
Good stuff. I was inspired when I got this radio show 3 years ago. The dynamic you brought with ethnic diversity, the way you presented at the town halls, off script, no podium. I go, yes. And your word, you always said to me, Curtis, you have a problem with me with what I'm doing. You come into my office and let's talk about that. And I go, this is great, and you know I would if you slip up.
In fact, you have.
Yes, thank you. And what I admire about you is the power of dialogue, on how you presented flawlessly with that synchronicity. I said, I gotta take that mechanism and bring to my show too, because I like your style. How you present without paper and everything just totally blew me away.
Well, that's very kind of you, and I appreciate it. I can tell you the story where it came from.
I'll get it out there.
All right, so before I went to law school later in life. I was 28 years old.
Okay.
Of course, at that time I thought that was old. Now, 31 years later, I don't think it's so old.
No.
And I'd been active in politics.
Yes.
I'd been active in union stuff, and I had a way of speaking.
Right.
I used to read from script.
Okay.
I thought I was loud and I was effective and I was inspiring people to follow me.
Yes.
And at the law school I attended, there was a big thing, the thing called mooting. And mooting it's like a fake it's like a fake appeal.
All right.
And you're up there presenting.
Okay.
And we had this, our school was very successful out of my law school, University of Calgary Law School.
Right.
And one thing we always participated in was this international law moot called the Jessup.
Okay.
And if you won in Canada or finished in the top 2, then you went to Washington, and it was always a top 4 thing, and I wanted to be on this team. So I get picked for the team, and we do our first presentation, and I do it my way, and the guy who's running the team says that was awful. So I say to him, why did you pick me?
Mm-hmm.
And he said to me, because I saw who you could be.
Wow.
And he taught me, and I'd love to tell you, Curtis, that I just sucked it up like a sponge and the rest of it, but I fought every single thing he taught me. But he won, and he taught me how not to speak with a note.
Right.
He taught me to speak quietly
Right.
when I make a presentation. Now that sometimes gets me in trouble because sometimes people can't hear me,
Oh, right.
so I have to be careful.
Get that mic.
Yeah, I need a mic, and I need to make sure I have the mic close to me.
Yes.
But that's where it came from, and so it's product of training. It's a product of, like anything else good in life, it's a product of some sweat.
Yes.
I'm going to be honest, some
Yes.
tears.
Yes.
Some tears, because it really upset me when he told me I was terrible.
Yeah. Well, in life, without struggle, there's no progress.
That's right.
Right. Give us a sense of where you grew up, Hugh.
Well, I probably had the most unusual place that I grew up. So I grew up on the grounds of a tuberculosis sanatorium.
Wow.
My mother was the medical director. My dad was a doctor as well. And this, so I grew up in just outside of a town called Fort Capel. The sanatorium was called, wait for it, Fort San. Sanatorium Fort San. And it was this, and when I was growing up, the last patients I left there in 1967. So most of the time I was growing up, it was a bunch of abandoned hospital buildings. They were all empty. There were houses on there were houses for the staff on the place. I had to walk up this hill every day, back and down to get to the bus, and you'd walk by these empty buildings. And late at night, it was a bit eerie, Curtis. So that's where I grew up. Now, Fort San, I was looking it up a couple years ago. Apparently, it's one of the 10 most haunted places in Canada.
10 most haunted.
And you know what, Curtis? I never saw a ghost. So I was thinking, I was always a nerd, and I guess ghosts don't like nerds.
Wow.
And Fort Capel was 1,600 people.
1600. Okay.
So I grew up in a small town. It's about 45 miles northeast of Regina, and it's in what's called the Qu'Appelle Valley. So it's on the prairies, but where I grew up, trees, hills, lakes.
Good stuff. Tell the fans, what did you do before joining the pension plan?
Immediately before I joined the pension plan, I was a lawyer.
Okay.
And I specialized in pension and benefits. I did some insolvency work for the 12 or 13 years before I joined. I was at a labor side law firm where we represented the interests of working people. I did a lot of stuff where we fought to protect people. Before that, I was a corporate firm, partner at it. I left being a partner at the corporate firm because my wife and I had adopted 2 kids, and I was never home, Curtis, and I just thought, these kids didn't ask me to be their parent.
Gotcha.
I wanted to spend more time.
Right.
And before that, I was in politics.
Oh, okay.
I worked for a cabinet...
Busy man.
Yeah, I worked for a cabinet minister in the Bob Rae government, and that's how I learned about pensions and did policy work on it, so fun.
Yes. Hugh, I must ask you, when you became the CEO of OP Trust Pension Plan a few years ago, that feeling the feeling of being the CEO and how you wanted to guide the pension plan, take us there.
Well, I always had a view, I had a view about how a pension, 2 things, I guess 2 or 3 things that mattered to me the most, Curtis. One is, I always had ideas about how to, that I thought I wanted to be treated, and I thought people should be treated in a workplace. Yes. So that's the first thing.
Right.
Second thing is, I always had a view about how a pension plan should operate, how it needs to operate in the interest of its members,
right.
and to be focused on what matters to them, which is, we made a promise.
Yes.
We said we were going to pay them a benefit at a certain price.
Right.
And I want to make sure we keep that promise.
Absolutely.
And then the third thing is, I think, first of all, I'm probably the luckiest person in the world.
Okay.
And I think it is a privilege to have my job. But I think with privilege and with my good luck there's a responsibility to do the right things.
Yes.
And I think our pension fund can participate in doing the right things and still act in the interests of our members and make sure they get paid. So I can give you a couple examples of that.
Sure.
We have a retirement income crisis in this country. People are getting older. They don't have adequate pensions. They worry about having enough to survive on, and then once they retire, if they're not in a plan like ours, which pays them a specified amount every month,
yes.
then they worry they're going to outlive their money. They don't live well. So So we've done a whole bunch of things around retirement income security. We supported the expansion, ORPP, which was the Ontario Retirement Pension Plan, which led to the expansion of the CPP. We were in the background on that, Curtis.
Yes.
And that's the other thing. We don't always have to be in the headlines.
Right.
We are in the headlines a lot, but we don't always have to be. We were in the background giving good advice, helping to make that happen.
Right.
The other thing is, we've established a pension plan for the not-for-profits. Now we have to go out and prove to people that it's right for them so that they'll join. They don't have to join us. So, and we're doing work around making sure we have $20 billion we invest on behalf of our members, and we're using the power of that money to get better behaviors out of the corporate world and to lead conversations and to take action on things that need to have action taken on, like climate, like making companies behave better. So, and then we do a whole bunch of things at work, as you know, to try and contribute to the economy. So, and to making the world a better place in small ways by our charitable endeavors, which the staff run, by having kids in the Moving Toward Opportunity, which this radio station's based in Regent Park.
Yes.
But kids in Regent Park, those kids, we have to make sure that they have an opportunity to see a different world. Our world is 3 kilometers.
Yes.
We're 3 kilometers away from our office. Now, for your vast American listenership, it's about not quite 2 miles. So I just want to make sure they're not alienated, Curtis.
Right.
But the kids in Regent Park, that's like Mars.
Yes.
So I worked with Charmony Fernando, who's well known in Regent Park, Pathways, now at Cabbagetown Youth Center. She's a force of nature. She developed this Moving Toward Opportunity program, get these youngsters jobs in the corporate world so that they can have a network, so they can see what a different world looks like,
Right.
and so that they can take control of their lives, control their destiny, and make the world better.
Remarkable. Hugh, give us, which CEOs did you look up to?
Curtis, I grew up in the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
I don't know how old I was before I met a CEO, but I don't know how old I was before I understood what that meant.
Okay.
I looked up to different leaders.
Yes.
Bob Ray is a friend of mine. I know he's a bit of a controversial figure to some, but he's a guy who has a good heart, and he's a good person. He tries to do the right things. I grew up in Saskatchewan. Alan Blakeney was the premier, low-key guy, but he did the right things. He cared about people. Saskatchewan used to have a pharmacare program.
Okay.
For example, in the province of Saskatchewan under T.C. Douglas, Woodrow Lloyd, that's where Medicare came from.
Really?
My dad, he was one of the very few doctors who supported the development of Medicare. I had a grandfather who was active in politics.
Nice.
And then you meet leaders if your eyes are open and your ears are open, you meet leaders everywhere, every day, who are people trying to make a difference, doing a good job,
Right.
and that's one of the things that's. It's humbling because it shows you how much you have to do, but it also it's inspiring. So
Yes.
I don't know. There's different leaders in the corporate world. The guy who runs the healthcare plan, Jim Culhane, he's an amazing guy. He's a great investor. He does the right thing for members on the investment side. I admire him. So all sorts of people.
Good stuff. I'm just so happy to have you here, and it's the energy.
But Curtis, it's an honor to be here, because I remember before I had this job, I was the outside lawyer, and I supported the board at OP Trust.
Right.
And you and I would talk when they'd have me sit in the hallway or whatever, and I didn't know what your job. I didn't know what your job was, and we talked about everything. And then when I got this job, remember how surprised people were that we knew each other. But that's one thing I've learned in life. My parents were role models for this. Everybody, you learn something from everybody you talk to.
Quite true.
And if you spend your life thinking it's the person who went to this school or has this job or all that kind of stuff, you're going to miss out on life.
Quite true. Quite true. Oh, that's well said. Can you describe your leadership style?
I have a vision.
Okay.
I always start with where it is I want to go.
Okay.
I like to think I'm strategic. I think the most important thing you can do when you're a leader is to hire the best people you can. You know, Curtis, when I have an executive committee, that's my most senior executives. My goal in selecting members for that committee is I want to be the stupidest person. The other thing, you know, people describe leadership as being the leader is the loneliest job in the world. And you know, before I had this job, Curtis, I used to think what that means is you're making all these big decisions and you're on your own. That's not right. When you're making a big decision, you get all sorts of input.
Yes.
It's still your decision, but
Yes.
people are there helping you. But you know why it's lonely? It's lonely because, you know, Curtis, I'm a guy who, I have a disability. I worked hard to get where I am. I was always wanting to prove people wrong, maybe insecure. I use those insecurities to power me.
Yes.
If I'm insecure as the leader, Curtis, I make the whole place insecure.
Quite true.
So some mornings I wake up and my insecurities are yelling at me saying, hey man, I helped you get to where you are. Why are you leaving me in the house?
Yes. Fix it.
And so that's why it's lonely, because there's parts of your personality that they're there, they've always been there, but they're not helpful to the organization. And insecurity can wear you down because, you know, if I'm thinking that Curtis, he's showing me up, I want everybody who works for me to show me up. That's, you know, in a way that advances us.
Right.
The other thing is I like to make sure the people who work directly for me, I don't do their jobs.
Right.
You know, I sometimes say I'm the only one who doesn't really have a job at OP Trust, right?
Right.
Their job is to do their jobs. I'm there to support them, to understand what they're doing, help them when appropriate, give guidance.
Right.
So I like to empower my team.
Okay. That's good. Tell us of some of your accomplishments that shape your career.
Well, I'm going to tell you a personal story, Curtis. So when I was applying for this job, they get a psychologist to assess you. And so the psychologist is assessing me, you know, because I guess they want to make sure I'm not, you know, I'm suitable and whatnot.
Yes. Yeah.
And she's asking me about me, and she gets frustrated. She closes her book, and she says to me, it's customary for people who are applying these jobs to talk about themselves, to talk themselves up, to even brag.
Right.
I need you to do that. Because what I think is important, Curtis, is when we talk about accomplishment, I'm not certain it's fair or right to say they're my accomplishments. I look at OP Trust and I look at its success in the time that I've been there, and I honestly believe if someone were to objectively look at what I've done and how I've done it, I've played the smallest role. I've catalyzed some people to do some things, but what I'm proudest of is the things that people have done in our organization and what the organization's accomplished. So I'm proud of the fact that we went from from a place that 4 years ago was considered troubled to an organization that's considered a leader in the pension world. I'm blown away that we don't do the corporate charity thing anymore, top down.
Yes.
We let the staff run it. They decide what we're going to do. We call it OP Trust Cares. I love that. I love the fact that at our workplace, we have a program called Head Start.
Yes.
And that's for, the people who work for us. If family members are having trouble, and especially nowadays, having trouble getting started, getting experience, those sorts of things, we give them a hand. They work for us for 4 months. We give people hands all the time in terms of helping them network, helping them move forward. I'm excited I get charged up when I feel the energy of the place.
Yes.
I get to talk to people who work for us, interact.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm proud of the work we've done on retirement income security.
Yeah.
I'm proud of the work we've done on climate, and there's more to come on that. I'm proud of the work we've done in doing a great job for our members. And I'm proud of the fact that people walk around feeling proud of who we are and what we do. I've had other things in my career. I was the silver medalist in law school. I won scholarships. I won some big cases. I participated in 2 restructurings of Air Canada that helped to keep it survive. I worked with my client, the machinists, and we maintained a defined benefit plan, early retirement provisions for the people who are part of the machinists, because those people do physical labor. Their bodies break, and we were the only union that preserved the early retirement for its members. I'm proud of that. I'm proud. I'm lucky. I'm proud of my kids. I'm proud of, contributions that I've been part of in terms of working with people. So,
Good stuff. Hugh, why do pensions matter?
pensions matter at a whole bunch of levels. I think that, it's funny, Curtis. We live in a world where, after World War II, people came together and they said, we want to make the world better. And certainly in the Western developed world, they did.
Yes.
Right? Employment insurance, social assistance, retirement income security, better housing for people, not vilifying poor people, better educational institutions. And then, like everything else in life, times changed. Starting in the 1980s, we had a move in another direction. But where we are now is, in terms of pensions, people are not as well off as they used to be. Now, I don't want to nerd out your program because they might stop calling you Koolbreeze. They might start calling you boring wind or something. But there's two kinds of pensions.
Yes.
There's what are called defined benefit plans.
Right.
And in a defined benefit plan, what that means is the outcome is defined. You know what you're going to get every month. And what happens in a defined benefit plan, you don't have to worry about outliving your money.
Okay.
You don't have to worry about investing your money. It's run by professionals. But in a defined contribution plan, what's defined is what goes into the plan, and then you're responsible for investing it. You don't get a set sum of money. They hand you a bag of money at the end, and then you have to figure out how much you're going to live on every month.
Right.
And there's actual research that proves people on a defined contribution plan, they're so scared of outliving their money, and that's normal. That's a normal feeling. They don't eat well. They don't fill their prescriptions. They don't travel. They don't live the dream. Pensions are important because they give something. Well, people earn them through their working careers, and it's something that they get at the end. And it's so that they can have the last 10, 20 years of their life where it's, they had a good life working. It's a good life at the end, too.
Good. The importance of ethnic diversity in the workplace. How important is female management roles in the workplace?
I think diversity is really important. So, I think it's important for a number of reasons. First of all, I'm a member of a diversity group. I'm a traumatic brain injury survivor. I don't see out of my right eye. My brain, when it rewired into my vestibular system, that's a long-winded way of saying why I can't catch a ball. Okay. And things that come automatically to kids and to people, running, throwing, all that kind of stuff, I had to learn all that, Curtis. How I learn is different. I see patterns because I don't learn the same way other people do. And so I had to train myself to do all that stuff. So that's created for me an empathy. But I think diversity is important for this reason, whether it includes ethnic diversity involving women, disabled people, you name it. The reason why it's important, Curtis, is it gives you access to different ways of thinking. So I can tell you, Curtis, I've assembled a really good team.
Right.
And it's diverse. But you know what the biggest problem with my team is? We all kind of think alike. I have a couple of people, and they drive me a little bit crazy, Curtis, because they think differently than me.
Right.
But I'm glad.
Yes.
And in the world we're in now, where we have disruption, we have rapid change, people who crave comfort are going to be the people who lose. So it's important for the organization because it gives you better thinking, better ways of doing things. It's important for the world because it creates opportunities, makes the place better. And, we have to figure out a way to, stop excluding people. We've got to be, we've got to understand that we all have contributions to make, and we have to do better. But human beings, we're nervous about what we perceive as outsiders and stuff. And I observe this and watch it. It hurts me to see it.
Yeah.
And we've got to do a better job of making people understand that people aren't taking things from you. They're making things better.
Good stuff. Hugh, what's the biggest challenge for you running a $20 billion pension plan?
The biggest challenge is making sure that we invest in a way, that we conduct ourselves in a way, that we have the assets to pay the benefits we've promised to people.
Okay.
And that's a hard job. Investment markets are difficult, low interest rates, a lot of challenges, but that's also makes the job fun.
Good, good. How do you ignite innovation with the pension plan?
I think there's a bunch of ways to do it. One is you have to articulate a vision.
Right.
Two, you have to tell people.
Right.
You know, that innovation, technology is the small part about it.
Yes.
What I want innovation to do is to free up people away from routine jobs so that we can use their minds, their abilities to make things better in the workplace. Our jobs are more interesting, to do a better job for our members. So our members have a better experience. So we invest in a way where we see the future, we're ready for it, we do a good job for our members. And then we have to understand that disruption is everywhere, and it's a good thing. And the last thing, and I've said this, and you know I've said this, is when we innovate, we're not taking anybody's job away.
Good.
I'm going to innovate it. We're going to innovate a member experience in such a way. One thing our members want is more personal contact.
Yes.
So we're going to innovate so there's more personal contact. But we're not going to take anyone's job away.
Wonderful. I must give you some credit for driving the OP Trust University program, Pathways, Students, Head Starts, OP Trust Select. Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, you know, it's funny, Chris. We when I first started, we did what's called an employee engagement survey.
Yeah.
And what the employees told us is, we want more training. Now at the time they wanted XL3. I still am baffled by why people wanted to learn more about Excel. I don't like Excel, but that's, you know, that isn't my decision. So we decided to do something radical.
Right.
We decided we were going to listen to what people were telling us. So we created OP Trust University, and then we run it. The way we run it is, sometimes, you know, organizations set up a training function, and then it never changes. They always offer the same courses. And we don't do it that way. We offer a course, people get to do a course evaluation, and they can tell you what they like, and we also want to know, okay, what do you want next? Okay. So you have to listen to people.
Right.
So that's OP Trust University. OP Trust Select is our effort to try and come up with a retirement income security solution for people in the not-for-profit sector who want to have a defined benefit plan. So we've designed a plan that pays a lesser benefit than OP Trust, but for them putting in 3% of their pay, they're going to end up with a certain sum of money. What were your Head Starts? We talked a little bit about that.
Yes.
And that's about, you know, I think the most important, look, like, dislike isn't a way you want to go through life.
Right.
You know, employees like me, don't like me, that's going to change every day.
Right.
But the most important thing is, I want all of us to feel loyal to OP Trust, but for that to happen, we as the employer have to take the risk of being loyal to our employees, demonstrating that we care. And what's the most important thing to anybody? It's their family.
Yes.
And if you can show people that we're interested, and genuinely interested in the future of their family members, their kids, if we help those young people get a start in life, it makes a difference. It's not a big budget item, and we pay the kids not much more than minimum wage. The union agrees with us, they like the program. When it comes to Pathways, which is a program based in a lot of high needs neighborhoods,
yes,
including Regent Park, which provides tutoring, helps young people stay in school, marvelous success rate. Out of Pathways, they started this program called Moving Toward Opportunity, and it's minimum wage jobs, minimum wage jobs for young kids in grade 10 and 11 who live in Regent Park, give them a way to see to see the corporate world, make a decision after that if they want to be in or the out.
Right.
And then the most important thing is we get, whether you're a Head Start participant or you're a Moving Toward Opportunity participant, you know, we make sure that those young people have a network. We expand their family, so if they have questions about stuff they're not sure about, they can talk to people. I tell these young people, at OP Trust we've had people who study everything from astronomy to zoology. We've all the countries of the world, all the schools probably in the world, all the major schools, minor schools, people to talk to.
That is wonderful. Hugh, what is your perspective on climate change?
I think climate is a significant issue that is facing the world. I think extreme weather events are becoming more common. But my biggest concern around climate-related issues, Curtis, is we live in a world where there's been a lot of talking.
Yes.
The talking makes people think that things are a lot further along,
Mhm.
and they're not. And if we don't, I think we almost have to do a 12-step program, Curtis. We have to admit we have a problem, and our problem is obviously climate change, extreme climate events are a problem. But the problem we have is we've been talking and not doing.
Yeah.
So we need, as an investor, we need more information so we can price this risk. Why do I want to price that risk? I want to price the risk so we do the right thing for our members, but I want to price that risk so that companies that aren't doing things the right way, we can encourage them to do the right things. Ultimately, we can reward the best, punish the worst, and we have to start pushing things in this direction. We're going to start with some modest first steps. People are going to think it's not enough. They're going to be right. But without those first steps, we can't take the big steps. Too many people are acting like it's 10 years from now,
Yeah.
and we're looking backwards. We have to get to 10 years from
Yes.
now. And we have to promote. The other concern I have around climate, Curtis, is I think it's becoming an issue of the talking people and the elites. And for regular people who are struggling, I was listening to the radio this morning, and CBC's broadcasting their news out of London, Ontario. 23 people in London, Ontario overdosed in August. 23.
Frightening.
We have drug addiction, we have uncertain futures, people who've worked in certain jobs, well-paying, unionized jobs, they've worked in them, their dad, their grandfather, those jobs are under pressure or disappearing. We need to make climate an issue that makes sense at the kitchen table for everybody. So we have to focus also on adaptation. So if we made every public sector building in Ontario, every residence, and had tax incentives or otherwise for commercial buildings, we made them all energy efficient, it would make a small contribution on climate, but it would make those issues real to people, and we'd have support for it. We've got to start building a coalition. We need a Green New Deal, and we have to start moving forward.
Good. Hugh, how would you enlighten the young generation in general? How do you engage a young demographic to join the pension plan?
Well, Curtis, when I was young, and you're probably wondering, really? You were young. I remember I worked for this member of parliament, and you had to belong to the pension fund, and I was just waiting to get out. Because when you get out of the pension fund, you got your money back.
Right.
And so I was thinking, how am I going to spend the money? Those sorts of things. The problem with being young is awesome. It's nice to get out of bed and not hear anything. But in the morning, like your bone creaking or whatever. But the problem with being young is you never think you're going to wake up one morning and you're 59.
True.
So what we need to do is, we can talk about having an income at the end, but we have to figure out a way to be relevant to our members throughout their life cycle. So I think if we can use the power of our numbers, power of our members, to get people a better deal on their mortgage, their car loan, their personal loans, that'll give a value. I think we have to communicate to people in a way that is understandable for them. Curtis, I had this theory that it mattered how we communicated. It had to be different based on your age.
Right.
So we did these focus groups based on age groups to prove my theory. What we found out was it didn't matter how old you were, all our members hated how we communicated with them.
Okay.
So we changed it.
Okay.
And then we also now have borne down on how we're going to change our communication with people based on age, because in the world we're in now, it's like when the telephone came. How old you are is going to affect how we communicate.
Yeah. So
we're going to need apps and different things. But we are working on this. We are thinking about this, and I think we'll resolve it. And I think also, I guess the last point, Curtis, is if we're doing things that are socially relevant as a pension fund and communicating the right way,
right.
I think that'll also motivate, activate, and inspire young people.
Good stuff. With the PC Power and Party, there's talk about consolidating pensions. How does that enhance or enlighten your perspective?
It doesn't matter who's in power. We have to work with them and work constructively and get feedback from them. I don't think consolidating pension plans, When people talk about consolidating pension plans, the theory is you're bigger, so you'll save money. You're bigger, you'll get access to more expensive and exotic asset classes. So typically, people invest in bonds, stocks, real estate. But to invest in real estate, you need your own team. Then there's private equity. Those are smaller businesses buying shares of things that aren't traded on public markets. Then there's infrastructure, power, generation, toll roads, those sorts of things. Well, here we are. I'm running a $20 billion fund. Guess what, Curtis? One, I already have internal teams that do infrastructure, real estate, private equity. We internally manage most of our public markets, bonds, alternative risk premia, buying equities. We already do that. Saving costs, the entire cost of running our operation is 0.35% or 35 basis points, and the cost of investing the money is 24 basis points or 0.24%. We've already got lower costs, but we have to keep doing a good job. Lastly, I think smaller. Now, depending on context, but I think smaller is better.
Yes.
And it's because we can be more entrepreneurial. We can do things. Some places you need to invest $1 billion before it's an investment they'll take on. I don't have to do that.
Okay.
So, and I think there are more opportunities in the mid-markets. So I'm excited about our size, but you know what? Having other people around, bigger, smaller, our size, pushing each other to get better on behalf of our members and doing what's best for our members, that's a good thing.
Good stuff. Hugh, what are some of your vision, mission, and core values?
As a person?
And the company?
My core values are, there's certain things I cannot compromise on.
Right.
So I cannot compromise around racism.
Right.
I cannot compromise when they're discriminated against because of their religious beliefs.
Yes.
I can't compromise around people being cruel and unnecessarily hurtful. I'm not talking about, interpersonal relationships in terms of, those things not working out in the norm. But I'm talking about those sorts of things. And I can't stand it when people aren't given opportunities.
Right.
So those are kind of core personal values. And I also think, I guess the last thing, and you and I were talking about this a little bit before we went to air, it really bothers me when people feel that they deserve something or they're entitled. I'm not talking about people thinking they deserve a good education or that kind of stuff. I'm talking about when people think they deserve or entitled to big money. I can't stand it when people forget how lucky they are. I can't stand it when people forget what a struggle it was to get where they are.
Yeah.
We all remember, and by that way, Curtis, I also include, we all think we did it on our own. Lots of people help us in life. Got to remember those.
They do.
And then, the vision for the organization, I want us to be doing the best job we can for our members, protecting their benefits.
Yes.
Their experience with us is a great experience that they shape and control, and we do the right things on behalf of our members to promote a better society.
Good. One word that describes you best.
The word I would hope describes me best is I'd like people to think that I'm humble and have a humility about me. That's what I would like to believe. And then there's other things that matter too: integrity, principle, and then I think funny is important too.
Yeah, absolutely. How would you describe the company's culture?
Our culture is evolving, and it's always going to evolve. But I'm hopeful it's a culture that's compassionate. So that we're there for each other in difficult times. I'm hopeful it's a culture that's inclusive, empowering, that allows people to, I would like sharing your ideas is one of the hardest things we can do. It's hard when you're in class, it's hard with other people, and when people choose to take the risk of sharing their idea about how to make things better, they are putting a level of trust in the other person, and I'm hopeful we're an organization that honors that trust, and we have a culture that does that. But I want us to be risk-taking, but being risk-conscious, not risk-averse, doing the right thing, and being compassionate to one another.
Good. How does the company reward your performance?
Are you asking me about my income?
No.
You can look for that in the annual report. Curtis, I'm a really... One of the things that makes me lucky and fortunate is I'm rewarded every day I go to work by talking to the people, listening to what they have to say, seeing how energized they are. It's so inspiring, the work people do on behalf of our members. So I think for me that's the biggest reward. And also when people you get the ideas flowing and stuff happening, it's so cool.
It is. It really is. You've been at OP Trust for a while. What keeps you motivated?
The mission.
Sure.
Because it is a challenging world to provide people with a defined benefit, and there's so many pieces to it, and keeping on top of it, that keeps me inspired. Working with people to come up with great ideas keeps me inspired. Seeing positive outcomes, whether it's for people, individuals, or what we're doing, all of it.
Good. What upcoming initiative you find particularly exciting at OP Trust?
On November 19th and 20th, we're going to be hosting a climate symposium. We're going to bring, for the first time in Canada, we're bringing climate scientists together with investors to talk about issues. We're going to talk about how difficult an issue this is.
Right.
So that's exciting. How's this for a kid from Fort Capel, Saskatchewan, Curtis?
That's
huge.
I've
I've been asked to be the keynote speaker during UN Climate Week at a particular event for investors. UN Principles of Responsible Investing, their event. I'm getting to do that. I'm going to Singapore to speak on climate stuff. We're doing things on retirement income security.
Yeah.
It's, it almost sounds ridiculous, but it shows just how lucky I am. And everything about this job.
Hugh, I'm proud of you.
Well, that's kind of you, Curtis. I appreciate that.
Thank you. What is your company's customer and client service philosophy?
I think we try to provide. Well, it's funny. We're in the middle of changing it.
Okay.
So we have a client service model. We're no different than any of the other plans. That's firmly rooted in about 1985. Telephone based, paper based, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And the experience and the advances in technology have made, experiences people have as customers elsewhere kind of more interesting.
Right.
So our philosophy now is we want our members to shape their experience with us.
Wonderful.
We want to give them, we want to talk to them in a way that, or communicate to them in a way that works best for them.
Yeah.
And we want to use technology to achieve that, and we want to give people more personal contact.
Good stuff. Hugh, how would you pitch a service if you were in a sales meeting?
I think the most important thing is before you do the pitch, find out who are the people you're working with. What are their values? What's the problem they're trying to solve? Have the courage to say to people, you know what? We may not be the right solution for you, but we're gonna see if we know anybody who might be. You've got to put yourself, and I did this when I was a lawyer. You've got to put yourself in a position, in the shoes of the person you're talking to. And then the other thing I do, and isn't always what people want, Curtis.
Yes.
I've never been one in the context of providing services to people or products to people or the rest of it to tell them what they want to hear. When I was a lawyer, people paid me for my advice.
All right.
That's what I gave them. Sometimes they didn't like it.
Right.
And sometimes you have to tell people, here's what I think. And you have to have the courage for them to tell you, well, okay, you got it wrong, or those sorts of things. But you have to be focused on the person, not on your product, but them.
Good. What have you learned in the last year that will inform this company in the next year?
I've learned the importance of putting words into action, both in terms of how we operate as an organization, the things we promote. I've learned a lot and continue to learn a lot about best practices and innovation, sparking that. I've learned stuff about how we might have a more innovative culture. I've learned that I've spent a lot of time in when I'm working with other people, coaching them, trying to get them to chase their weaknesses.
Yeah.
I've decided, no, I want to help people to be at their highest and best use,
Yes.
and support them in that. And things they don't do well, fill them in a different way.
Good. What do you want for the employees of your OP Trust?
I want them to lead us, or help us to continue to be one of the leading pension funds in the world. I want us to propel ourselves so that 3 years from now we're seen worldwide as the most innovative pension fund in the world. People enjoy their jobs, they feel well compensated, they feel well treated, and they feel like they're in an environment where their ideas matter and they matter.
Good, good, good. Tell us about a time in your career when you failed, and how did you bounce back?
I've probably failed many times, but
Okay.
the one that I think taught me the most is when I worked in government, we had promised government-owned auto insurance,
Okay.
and we ended up breaking the promise. And what I reflected on is, we were going to do it like they've done it, say, in BC, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, where the government runs it all.
Yeah.
And what I wish we had an alternative I wish we would have pursued is the way they do it in Quebec, where the part where on personal injuries,
Yes.
that's owned by the government, and the part that's the tin and glass part of the car, that's private sector. And I think that would have helped us, because we wouldn't have broken our promise. It would have been the best outcome for people in Ontario.
Okay.
And it taught me, you've always got to keep your eyes open. All or nothing is not always the right answer.
Right.
And you've got to always be looking for alternatives. Doesn't mean it turns out that way, but that was a very significant failure that I was. I'm not going to pretend I was the most significant person around at Curtis, but I was there.
Right. What's the best advice you've received?
I've received a lot of great advice, but I think what's important.
One that stands out.
Well, I think what keeps you inspired, that keeps you moving, is having a faith in where you're going and why. Because if it's just hope,
Yeah.
hope falls apart,
Yeah.
but faith doesn't. If you have a sense in any crisis you're in that you have the people around you, you have the skills, you've laid a good foundation, you've put a lot of good things in place, then I think over time that it'll turn out the right way, and that's for the long term. So for me, it's not that I'm not preaching religion here, Curtis.
No.
But it's more a personal philosophy.
Right on, right on. What's the biggest challenge for you right now?
Biggest challenge is, there's a lot of challenges. There's the work we do around maintaining the funded position, the pension plan. That's a professional challenge.
Right.
It's keeping a cool head.
Yes.
It's keeping us moving forward in the right way. It's keeping myself moving forward in the right way. It's, when I have troubles or problems, knowing that we have the skills to move through them and to solve the issues.
Did you ever envision yourself being the head of a pension plan?
No. And it's funny, Curtis. I know there's people from work listening. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to.
Yeah. Okay.
If I'd have known what this job involved,
Yeah.
I would have thought, never in a million years could I do it.
Oh.
Right? Because the most important parts of this job are not what you think from the outside are the most important parts. The most important parts are, all of the soft things, making sure people are treated the right way, focusing on that, and seeing how it matters to people, and that's been really helpful and inspiring. When I started, I don't know if you remember this.
Yes.
I say thank you to people for doing stuff.
Yeah. I remember.
And then I would have people asking me, what the hell are you doing? Why are you saying this? What is it you really want? And I just think it's important to show appreciation and to recognize achievement. And those things show people that you actually care, because it's one thing to pay people, it's important to pay people, but a paycheck, that's not enough.
True. Well said. Hugh, when it's all said and done for you with pension, how would you like to be remembered?
I think the best memorial I could have would be to see OP Trust as long-term, successful, innovative, meaning that. I'd like people to say I was committed to what I was doing.
Yeah.
I walked my talk.
Right.
And by working with others, that I recognized others, and by working with others, we made a difference.
Good. It's been a pleasure.
That hour.
That hour just grind right through. We were having such a good time. Tell the fans your playlist. What type of music do you listen to? What kind of food do you eat?
I'm eclectic in both things.
Wow.
So my music ranges from reggae. I'm going to embarrass Koolbreeze right now. There was a Jimmy Cliff song he didn't even know.
It happens.
Yeah, he was look on his face when I showed him One More Time by Jimmy Cliff.
Guilty.
But so I like music from all genres. I have a tendency to like early rock and roll.
Love that too.
It's just I don't know. There's a naivety about it. Food. People looking at me would be able to tell. I like all kinds of food. I love Asian food. I love Caribbean food. I love a good steak. There is a bit of an Irish cuisine. I have to point that out. I like food from all over, all sorts of Japanese food. So I like all kinds of food. African food I enjoy. Spicy food I love.
That is wonderful. Thanks for coming down to Radioregent Broadcast Facilities on the Koolbreeze Experience Show. It's been an honor having you here. And any shout outs to the OP Trust crew out there?
Lots of people, but I know one of our Young Head Start students was a woman named Tina Gravelson.
Yes.
And Tina is really, she's personifies cool.
Yes.
She
Yes.
does all sorts of interesting things, and I believe she's interesting. She's interested in the show and has been listening.
Yes.
There's so many people at OP Trust are just amazing and good people. And,
they are.
I'm going to find out on Monday how many of them were listening.
Yes.
But I want to do a shout out to you.
Absolutely.
I think that this is,
Thank you.
Asking me to be part of such an important part of your life and sharing with me how this came to be when we were talking beforehand was, I felt that I was in your inner circle, and that was a great honor for me and really interesting. And knowing your commitment to doing the right thing and making the right thing happen,
Yes.
I really admire that, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Shout out to the OP Trust crew, everybody there. They know who they are. And
Do we have Keyvan listening, do you think?
yes, and Navin, these
Navin
guys.
and Keyvan. Well,
Joseph.
I just found out that Keyvan played such a big role in helping you get here, so I think we have to do a shout out to him.
Yes, absolutely.
And he brings me hot sauce. So
Yes. And you have a couple of iconic people at Radioregent, the Burge, Noel, and the legendary Lawrence. It's been a pleasure having you here.
It's been fun. Thank you.
It's been
Curtis.
fun. Thank you, and please come back again, and we would talk about all this good stuff, and let people know how diverse we are at Radioregent and on the Koolbreeze Experience Show. Let's get back to the music. Thank you.